if someone asks me, how are you doing? And they responded, I don't even know right now. And I think for a long time, I was like, I really don't know. My name is Michelle Kozempa. I am a Cath lab and ICU nurse. I've been a nurse for 4 years, and I've been traveling with a travel nurse for a little over 2, and I've been with Atlas that whole time.
So first of all, thank you for responding.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to get my head straight on this because I'm curious as to, no pun intended there. After working like in a COVID unit, from coming from Cath lab, right,
Mm-hmm.
into an ICU, and then working with COVID patients, like,
Mm-hmm.
what does that do to you?
So for the past year, I've been in the Cath lab. Before that, I was always an ICU nurse. I traveled ICU. So I think, I'm kind of used to like operating at kind of like it's almost like a baseline level of chaos a little bit. You get used to that. And then even in the Cath lab, you're always on your feet and, having to anticipate because, any procedure, anything can happen. You never know. But then, going from Cath lab, then switching back to ICU, going up to Chicago, it was like the first day I walked in, I was kind of like, oh shoot, I don't know if I can do this. But then it's almost like that baseline of chaos kind of shifts, and then you just get used to it again, and then you just kind of fall back into instincts kind of just take over, and training takes over, and
That old routine kind of falls back into place for you. The riding a bike thing, maybe.
Yeah, kind of. I think I was there my first day in ICU. My point of contact person, they pretty much showed us to where the door of the ICU was, and it was a closed unit because the whole unit was a COVID unit, and pretty much dropped us off at the door and was like, okay, good luck.
See you later.
Bye. I'm like, okay, cool. But it was fine. I got in there. I think within probably an hour, the charge nurse came over and she was like, okay, I have a fresh cardiac arrest for you to take. Like, are you okay? And I'm like, all right, I guess this is just how it's going to be. We're going to do this. And then you just you learn to operate at that different level. So it wasn't bad. It wasn't too bad switching back over.
Now, so you're done there now, right? Is that right?
Yeah, Friday was my last day.
Last day by your contract?
Well, so it's kind of weird. I was in the Cath lab. I was in a hospital in Peoria in central Illinois, and started there in November in the Cath lab. Had just started my extension in March, and then all this craziness happened. The hospital I was at, they were furloughing employees. They weren't getting hit by the virus, but they had a sister hospital that they had just bought up in Chicago that was in desperate need of help. So, I got an email from HR, and I had talked to my manager about it, so I kind of knew the cancellation was coming. I messaged my recruiter and was like, hey, I'm going to need to start looking for something. But I got an email from HR, and they basically said, with your resume and your background, in lieu of a cancellation, they said we can either cancel you, give you 2 weeks, payout, which is nice of them. Said, or, we can, with your background, we can use you and kind of redeploy you up to Chicago to help with the COVID crisis up there and to work in the ICU. So that was for 4 weeks. And then I had 2 weeks left on my contract. So I actually worked up there 5 weeks, and then that was it. So my contract was over 2 weeks early, but better than, I can't complain. I got another 5 weeks. I've been working this whole time. So
that was, yeah. And the reason why I asked is I legitimately didn't know, because there have been so many cancellations, and you just don't know.
Yeah. So I appreciated the opportunity rather than being flat out canceled. There's like a small little part of me for a second that was like, heck no, take the 2 weeks, take your money and run, go back to Texas. But then I think there's a bigger part of me that, was like, no, number one, travelers all over, like you said, are getting canceled. The market right now is really volatile. It still is. Two is just kind of, I don't know, I feel like I'm the person. There's people, when there's a fire, there's people running towards it, and there's people running away. I'm always the one running towards it, which probably gives my mom a little bit of a heart attack, but I think she's used to it by now. So, yeah, for a second, I was like, yeah, no, I don't, maybe. But then I was like, no, I'm going to go. So.
Yeah. So, I mean, deep down, you were an ICU nurse. Where R is, right? I mean, that's if I knew ICU nurses are as much. Okay. So I always say, here's the thing. I always say ER nurses are my favorite. I don't know why. They just kind of are. ICU nurses are the fearless ones. Like, I don't know. And I'm sure deep down there's something that will shake you, but the ICU nurses seem to just have that, like, yep, let's do it. You run towards the fire. You run towards the whatever, the gunfire, whatever it is, right? Whatever the danger.
Right. Yeah. And I think it's, I think a lot of it too is I'm very much a competitive person. I've always been an athlete. So there's like that competitive nature to it. That, okay, you're going to give me this challenge. Well, I'm going to face that challenge and then I'm going to beat it. And then there's also that part of me that's just the neurotic type A perfectionist that it just comes out. So,
look, I mean, you're talking to type A here too, so I completely understand. It annoys me sometimes, but in myself and in others, right? I know, but it's all just a reflection of myself and maybe the annoyances that I have with who I am sometimes.
Right.
So,
yeah.
Okay. Definitely. So part of this was that kind of, how's your head? With the whole kind of May is mental health awareness month, and it's not that nursing was ever easy to begin with.
Right.
Like, I know that, but especially right now, like, how is your head? Like, how are, and I've asked this before, like, how you doing? And the answer, the typical answer is, oh, I'm fine. Are you really fine? Like, how are you?
Yeah. I'm getting better. I saw a meme that was like, someone asked me, how are you doing? And they responded, I don't even know right now. And I think for a long time, I was like, I really don't know. Cause it was hard. And it was, obviously in the ICU, we deal with death all the time. It's nothing new, but just the sheer amount that we dealt with, the working conditions, everything surrounding with COVID and all that, it just kind of made it for a completely different environment. And it was very hard for me, I think, because you're so used to being in that environment and you're so used to being, kind of like on at all times and you're constantly firing, where it took me, last Friday was my last day. So it's been 6 days off, and it took me probably a solid 3 or 4 of those days before I could find, like, I needed to learn how to, and I still am not good at it, but I need to learn how to just relax again and how to just, be, and not, my mind's always thinking. And, I'd go home at night and, go back to the hotel and let my dog out and sleep. And, my mind's constantly racing and you're hearing the alarms. And it took a few days to really kind of settle down. I don't know. I feel like part of, like, I've kind of put it in a part of my brain and tucked it away, like I haven't really talked to many people about it. So, and I don't know, maybe I will, maybe I won't, maybe that's just how I process things, but, it's taken a while, but I feel like I told my poor recruiter, I thank God for Jana. Cause I think I'm a pretty low maintenance traveler. I really only text if I need things. She always texts to check on me. I feel like we have a friendship. So we do talk regularly, but I feel like I was just texting her like 3 or 4 times a week, like, what's going on? Like, am I going back to Peoria? How long do they need me here? And I feel like she probably was like, oh, this girl's having a mental breakdown. But, I'm doing a lot better. I made a decision. And it's kind of come at a perfect time where my contract ended with how the market is right now. I kind of made the decision to just take some time off. I have a beach house in Florida that I'm just gonna go to for like the month of June and kind of just relax, and just kind of learn how to slow down again. And then maybe by that point too, the market will be kind of back to normal-ish or not as bad, and, can get back at it. But it's definitely taken me some time to kind of come down from all that.
I think that's one of those things, is learning how to turn it off, right? When
Yeah.
you're not there, and that might go a long ways for your just mental well-being, is figuring out how with your personality type and who you are, and the specialty that you're in, being able to turn it off for a
Right.
bit.
Right. Yeah. And it's always been something since I started, nursing. I think it's just always something that you kind of have to learn how to shift out of that like fight or flight response to like just like relax, like it's okay. I've really kind of made an effort to, not, turn off the TV, turn off social media, because I feel like things like that aren't helpful. And just kind of, I'm still in Illinois. I'm self-quarantining for 2 weeks since I was kind of in the thick of it, just, before I go anywhere. And, home workouts, I've just been reading books. I started classes to get my BSN, which I've been putting off forever. And while that kind of adds more stress, it also kind of gives my brain something to focus on. So in a way, it's almost more calming. But my poor dog, she's probably like, cool it, lady, enough with the walks. But that's another thing, going cath lab, working 8-9 hours days, depending on where I was. I was working 9-hour days this assignment, to going back to working those 12, 13, 14-hour shifts. You kind of, I've been in the cath lab for a year. You almost kind of forget how to do that.
Right.
So that was kind of another thing that, took some getting used to. But then it's kind of almost nice because literally you go to work, you come home, you go to bed, you go back to work. So it's like you didn't have time to think of anything else. So I think that kind of maybe overexhaustion helped. I don't know.
Sometimes, maybe it's the opposite effect of turning it off. If it's just on all the time, then you don't have time to really like process what you've seen, where you've been, what you've done. Kind of, you're just going and going.
Yeah, I think that's kind of also, I think there's a little part of that where I'm at right now too, is where like I don't think I've really still processed it. Because it was bad in Chicago. It was one of the areas that was hit hard. I was working a 27-bed COVID ICU. Everyone was COVID positive or rule out. We turned our PACU into COVID ICU. We also had our fast track area in the ED that was a COVID ICU with holdover patients that didn't have rooms. And so, you're in this environment, and it's almost like it was almost like one of those things where I was less anxious at work and I was almost more calm at work because you were focusing on like the task at hand. Whereas like now that I have like time to look over and like kind of think about process, like what happened, I'm like, oh no, like not ready to do that yet.
Sure. Well, yeah, I think that you'll find that in a lot of things I've read recently, just trying to maybe understand, because I've said this so many times before, like there's a reason why I'm on this side of the desk and not on your side of the desk. I just can't. I know that's not a piece of me, right? I don't have that bone in my body, and it just doesn't exist. But trying to understand that point of view is hard. It's difficult.
Yeah. And I think if you have nurses, a lot of their friends are nurses. The things we talk about at the dinner table are normal dinner table conversation. So, it helps to talk to people. Like I've talked to my nurse friends from, my home hospital in Ohio and back in Texas, and just the travelers I've met along the way and stuff. And so I think it definitely helps to, talk with people who have been through it. I'm thankful for that. But yeah, like I said, I think there's a reason that nurses hang out with nurses.
Look, I've some of the best dinners I've had were with nurses too, because if to a normal person, like, oh, that person has no filter or whatever, it's not that they don't have a filter. It's just that's what the world that you live in every single day, and so that's what you talk about.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, so I guess last question here is if you had to give advice, like when you talk to your other nurse friends and you have to give advice, and one of them maybe they might be struggling, having a difficult time, like what advice do you give? Like what do you say to them?
Oh gosh. You know, I think the best advice I can give is, you know, do what you find things that you enjoy doing that, you know, calm you down. Like I said, that are things that you find therapeutic, whether it's, going for a walk, reading a book, um, doing yoga in your living room, or just like I said, like talking to someone who has been through it. I think you just have to find different ways. You have to find coping mechanisms. Otherwise, you'll never be able to make it. You have to find, and it could be trial and error. Maybe just sitting in front of your television and watching Netflix all day is calming to you. I can't do it because my brain is like da 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 da. I envy people who can, but and then just kind of, a big thing for me was just get away from the social media, get away from the TV, because you're already in this environment all day. You're already having to deal with it. Like, you need to be able, when you go home, find a way to just kind of, there's no real way to completely separate yourself from it, but you have to kind of find a way to kind of put that aside for just a little bit, and if you're constantly reading about it and seeing about it, I think that was one of the biggest things for me that's kind of helped me calm down, is just putting it away, like signing off.
So it's so funny so we just moved back in October of last year and moved from one house to another. And it really isn't far from where we lived before, but there's slightly more land here. Whereas where we were in a neighborhood before, it's still a neighborhood, but we have about 2 acres now, which is something we always kind of wanted anyway.
Yeah.
And so Jana's, let's see, how is Jana's ex-sister-in-law, Misty.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, So Matt is our marketing director.
Okay.
And so for a housewarming gift, he got me a bird feeder to put outside the dining room window there.
Yeah.
And I have never been one to sit down and relax and that type of thing or whatever. I have birds now. I watch my birds out the window. And it's that I would never, ever have thought through all of this. And who knows, if this hadn't happened, the bird thing probably wouldn't have been my thing anyway. I would just like, bird feeder, whatever. But it is such a weird, calming thing that I never thought would have existed in my life. Yeah. But you have to look for those things.
Right. That's another, there's the Illinois River obviously runs through Peoria. Mm-hmm. And there's just a spot I'll go to. It's, right by a lighthouse, right by the river, and you can just go and that's like one thing I do. It allows me to get outside, kind of have like the noise of the water in the background, so it's not dead silence. And that's kind of one thing I've been able to do that's been really helpful for me and really just helps me not think about anything. So yeah, you find ways.
It's weird how you find those ways. It's really strange. So, all right. Well, I think you're right. I think in the end, because I've lived through something similar. I've done this for 16 years now. Mm-hmm. I've lived through something similar in 2008. Like it's not going to be easy for a while. Like it's not easy right now. It's not going to be easy in a month. Like, but eventually I know, like we're all not getting super healthy right now. Like it's magically like we aren't, and then the Cath procedures are going to come back and knee replacements are going to have to happen, and there are going to be babies born prematurely.
Right.
We're not going to get out of this. Yeah. And so we're not going to get out of that. How about that? So, I mean, that's going to come back, and hospitals are going to need, they're going to need not only their perm staff, but they're going to need their temp staff again.
Right. Yeah. And I'm confident. And I said I wanted to, keep my ICU experience current. So I didn't think this was going to be the way I did it, but hey, it worked out. So, whether it's cath lab, ICU, there'll be jobs. So and thanks to traveling, I have, the finances to take some time off if I need to. So I'm not panicking.
And I think that's it. Like if you were ever going to, you mentioned memes before, like there's that meme, like I could go live in a cabin in the woods by myself or whatever. Like, okay, you kind of got that opportunity right now. Like you can go do that for a month and go do it. Find yourself, center yourself, get back to, get your head in the right place.
Exactly.
And then when things get back to, I don't even know. When the flu season hits and, and things like that in the fall,
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely going to be a new normal, but it'll all come back around. So, all
Yep. Well, take care of yourself.
right. Thank you so much.
Enjoy Florida. I'm jealous.
Hey, thanks. I'm
That'll be
excited.
awesome. So, all right. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right.
Bye.
Bye. A lot of information there, a lot of good information. Not always the best, rosiest, brightest picture, but that's just kind of how it is right now. And I think one of the things I'm super proud of here is in the bad times, we're going to tell you it's bad times. We're not going to sugarcoat it. Are there a lot of jobs out there right now? No, not really. Are there a lot of good jobs out there right now? No, not at all. But we didn't all magically just get healthier. Like, I didn't stop eating Burger King, right? At some point, I got to go back to the hospital for high blood pressure, right? I take medication for it right now. That's just me. I got to go back for that sometimes. Who knows what's going to happen? But the babies are still going to be born. You're still going to need the NICU. You're still going to need the PICU. You're still going to have PEDS units. You're still going to have people with heart conditions. You're still going to have people with mental health issues. None of that just all of a sudden got better. If anything, our lack of self-care, not wanting to go into the hospital system, maybe has gotten worse. And so that's going to show an increase into the hospital system coming this fall and winter. Who knows? But what I do know is we didn't all magically get healthier, and those jobs are going to come back around. And there's still a nursing shortage, and nothing with that has changed. So it may be hard to find jobs right now. It may be difficult on travel contracts. It's a cycle, and these things happen. I've seen it before, and I'm sure we'll see it in the industry again. Hang in there. Stay strong. Stay mentally strong. Check on each other. Ask your friends. Ask your fellow nurses, are you okay? And don't just take, yeah, I'm fine, at face value. Generally, you're not fine. Just having that person to talk to is more important than anything right now. Listening to each other, being there for each other is very important. We'll see you next week.